Yeah, we had no money, no network. We did have a starter home, and we had a little bit of equity in the home. And so we sold the home. That's how we printed the first issue of Utah Valley Magazine. You know, we had so much confidence that it would work. I also know how to live on almost nothing.
Yeah, so you were scrappy.
And so I was like, oh no, if we can just make $30,000 to $35,000 a year, we can do this.
Welcome back to Case Studies.
Hey.
I'm here with Jeanette Bennett.
You got it.
We were actually just talking about two N's versus one N.
I know, it's confusing. There's N's and T's and E's everywhere.
Yeah, so we've been friends, 2 to 3 years?
I would say so, for sure.
Yeah. Your work that you've done, your whole career, you know, I've seen it. We've been in Utah County for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of your career is kind of the heart of entrepreneurship and kind of the pulse of Utah and Utah County and all those things.
Well,
and
thanks.
so, you know, had always observed and, you know, you've used something that, you know, is important to both of us. And so that there's ties, but I think it's just over the last couple of years we've been crossing paths, and it's been fun to get to know you and follow your career. And so
Thanks.
Been looking forward to having this convo for a long time.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to sit down.
Yeah, and I think my world, I interact so often with men.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost predominantly men.
Mm-hmm.
And
Me too.
It's actually very true, yeah. And so we're always trying to find amazing women. And like Chelsea's been on, and
she's so awesome.
Emily McCormick and Kristen Andrus and, you know, Bonnie Corden. We've had really amazing women, but proportionally, it's a low number in comparison. And most of it's just the experiences and the people that I know and interact with are men.
Right. I mean, when we started, so I started Utah Valley Magazine in 2000, Business Q in 2003. And when I did my first 40 under 40 in Business Q, like, of course, I'm a woman. I wanted there to be a lot of women on the list. It was honestly really hard to find. I didn't find an even number of men and women. I think there were 6 or 7 women in that first batch of 40.
Yeah.
And I was looking.
You were looking.
Yeah. It's grown a lot. It's changed a lot. There's a lot of amazing women.
So I'm fascinated, and I don't want to go there yet, but I do want to spend time with you on that subject, because it's so relevant to me right now as I watch my wife. Mm-hmm. My wife's going through like this window. It's probably been the last 3 to 5 years where she was so heads down for so long as a full-time mom. Mm-hmm. And then there's been something over the last 5 years where there's just this almost like a calling, like there's something that's calling to her to go do something in addition to being a mom, you know, and it's, you know, and so she's gone to school, she's doing her MBA, and I can just see this like incredible leader like emerging in the community. But it's fun for me,
awesome.
You know, because it's just kind of happening really organically, but it's fun to watch. But that wasn't our journey when we got started. You know, we've kind of chosen pretty traditional roles from the get-go, and it was just.
And it worked.
And it worked great, and it was very deliberate, you know, and at that time and season, that was exactly what we both wanted and also what worked for our family. And so I'm interested to see kind of what you saw when you started your career, and also 25 years later, how it's evolved and changed, you know?
It definitely has evolved and changed, but I will say, like, a couple nights ago when I was at dinner with your business partner, Dave Jensen was there, and about 30 minutes in, I looked around the table of a dozen people or so, and I was like, I'm the only girl here.
Yeah.
I hadn't actually noticed until that moment. I'm pretty used to that, both in church settings and business settings. I'm outnumbered most of the time.
Yeah.
Especially now that I'm working in real estate. It's a man's world, but a woman has so much to give and so much to offer. And I love seeing Chelsea and others just rising up, and this next generation of young women have so many examples to look to. I didn't feel like I had any. I didn't have one role model that I knew in real life who like loved her family and had the size of family she wanted and had a career that was a killer career.
Yep.
I knew women in the business world that had great careers and either didn't have a family or maybe one kid with a nanny or something. And then I knew a lot of women that had beautiful families, and that was their whole life. And I felt like this in-betweener.
Yep.
You know, I felt like I can relate to both sides, but like I don't have one friend that can understand all the parts of me.
Yeah.
And I'm so lucky that now I have many.
Yep.
You know, Carrie Clark and Astrid Tumines and Sid Tetro. And, you know, there's a number of women I admire and we have similar goals of loving our family and also just building our careers. So that's great. And I have seen the evolution. But when I was starting, it was a little lonely. And there's definitely been times that being a woman has been a plus. And I know I've gotten some opportunities because I'm a woman. And there have been times where it's not been a plus.
Yeah.
I try to minimize I don't want to play the, hey, you should choose me, hire me, buy an ad for me because I'm a woman. I don't want to lead with that necessarily.
Yeah.
I want to just be awesome. And then, I'm a woman, you know? But there have definitely been times, and I know it, like when someone will plan an event, let's say they have a business event, and I'm sure they're looking at the agenda a week before and they're like, shoot, it's all men.
Yeah.
And we need a woman. And so I get called at the last minute. Will you moderate this panel? Will you speak at this thing or whatever? And sometimes I know, I'm trying to check a box. They want to check a box.
Yeah.
But I like not offended by that because I think, well, sure, I'm so glad you invited me. And I hope I do a good job.
But I also think it's a step beyond that. I think it's good for people to be aware and to people to say, I want a full representation of everybody that's going to be in the room. Right. You know what I mean? And
I absolutely do.
But I fall on the other extreme. I'm like, when I'm going golfing, like when I'm raising capital, I just am not inviting women. And there's part of it that's like, I'm married.
Right.
Like it's not natural for me to just like invite somebody and go hang out with them for 13 hours. You know what I mean? So there's that aspect of it too, where I'm like, I don't actually know how to navigate the dynamic a lot of the times, you know? And so I just gravitate towards.
It's tricky. I think Mike Pence said, you know, that he never would go out to lunch with a woman by himself. And I think that's a good standard. That's actually not one that I stick to.
Yeah.
Because I would miss out on a lot of opportunities.
Yep.
If I was like, well, I can't be alone, can't go to lunch with someone. I just set my gender aside and I'm like, let's talk about business.
You just go.
You know, I've sat down to do a lot of interviews through the years with men, of course. And you know, I hire brokers now at Colliers and I've hired and worked with a lot of men and I'm pretty comfortable with that. But you're right. Like it can be a little bit uncomfortable.
It's not even like cognizant. I'm not even thinking about it.
Right.
It's just when I look back, I'm like, I just don't. But when I take like events and training and a lot of these things, it's like and I have 3 girls, you know, and I'm like, I want them to have every opportunity.
Right. You want all the doors open.
I want every door open. And I'm like, but I don't know if I'm actually like part of the solution all the time. And so it's like an introspection of saying like.
The fact that you're thinking about it tells me you're part of the solution, right? Because I think that was what was hard for so long is it just wasn't a thought.
Yeah.
And women and men need to be allies and are allies of women.
Yeah.
All right. We need women to support each other. And earlier in my career, I felt like I would hear, oh, women are so hard on each other. Right. They're the ones that tear each other down.
Yeah.
And I just determined that's never going to be me. I don't want to be that kind of woman. You know, I want to
That's competitive.
Yeah. I want to lift everyone up. And because I've been a journalist and owned the magazines, my whole life has been telling other people's success stories.
Yeah.
So of course I'm going to celebrate women and men that do great things,
which is so fun. Like,
it is
like when
so
I think
fun.
when I think of a career, how fun is it that you get to celebrate other people's journey and their story?
It's a dream.
Like it's actually like so beautiful. It's almost like sacred ground, you know, where you really get to go on that journey with people. It's pretty special.
There's times when I've had interviews and after an hour or two, I've seen themes in their life. Then I point it out and they're like, I've never thought of that.
Because you're coming in with fresh eyes and you're coming in with like thousands of different experiences. So you're just like better, like you're trained to observe.
Right. It's like being a therapist, but putting it in words.
Even with this podcast, I remember when we first got started with this podcast, I got this feedback from this guy and I think he was thinking he was trying to be helpful, but he's like, I really like the guest that you have, but you're a terrible listener and I don't like your voice. And I'm like,
ouch.
I can't change my voice, but I can listen better. And it was actually like some hard medicine for me because I was like, I get so excited about themes, and so I'm jumping in,
Yeah.
And
Well, it's a two-way conversation,
but
right?
but then you start like realizing like listening is a real skill, and like, not listening endlessly, but like listening to listen and to see themes and to anyway, you had to have doing that for 25 years. You had to have got so good at it.
I think I'm naturally someone who prefers to listen over speaking, but also over time, I did learn to listen. I learned the questions that would work. I learned how to, if someone was super nervous, I learned how to ease them into the situation. If people were giving me one-word answers, I'd figure out how to get them to tell me a story, because that's really what I wanted. I wanted stories.
Yep.
I could figure out how old they were. I could figure out how many years they'd been in business. I could figure that out. But I want to hear a story, maybe one they've never told before, one they haven't thought about in a while. So to figure out how to get people to tell those stories, that's the fun part. And so many interviews ended with hugs and lifelong friendships and connections. And that's been such a privilege. I mean, I think 18-year-old me, who was leaving Idaho and, starting college and all that, would look at my life now and be like, wow, how did you
Pinch
get
yourself,
there? Just the way it's unfolded. And I'm so grateful, having just sold the business, I'm in this nostalgic mood of just thinking back to the 25 years and even this building we're in. Like, I remember when it was built, and Dave Hunter, who's part of this building, I put him on the cover when he had his Hailstorm Entertainment.
No, so we were up there talking, and it was so interesting because, this building that we're in, it's got so much history.
I love it. It's a building with stories, which is so cool.
It has soul. Like, it has legitimate soul, and you've got Ryan Smith that was, has one of the offices. And they go through this journey of building Qualtrics. And we were talking about it upstairs, and like, that Qualtrics wasn't around when you got started, and so you go from like being this baby to all of a sudden being one of the best companies to ever come out of Utah, and the process of selling it and then taking it private and then purchasing the Jazz.
It's incredible.
And it's happening in one of these offices. And then you've got the Dave Hunters and the Todd Petersons and just
such cool stories. When we did a cover story on Ryan, I think the lead was something like, Qualtrics is the most successful company you haven't heard of yet. I mean, people didn't know Ryan. People didn't know the name Qualtrics. It was so fun to have that on the cover and be part of the beginning.
Have you ever gone back? Like, what you need to do is like go back and find those covers and like send them to people. That's got to be so fun to like go back and say, hey, remember this?
Remember this moment? Yeah, I mean, Todd Peterson was on our cover. We both grew up in Idaho Falls, so I've known Todd and his family a long time. And so many cool things. At our 20th anniversary of Utah Valley Magazine, I put a picture of every cover and told a little backstory. And that was fun. That was fun to relive those moments of things that went right, things that went wrong, where that photo was taken, how there was a rainstorm that ruined our plans. We went to plan B. It turned out better. All the different things that have happened. And so when I drive up and down I-15, I see so many homes and offices where I've sat with people and we've laughed, we've cried. They've said at times, this part's off the record, but here's the backstory, And I mean, it's been so awesome.
I want to go back to the very beginning and kind of go into your story and your entrepreneurial journey. So when we were talking before you got started, grew up in Idaho Falls.
Yep.
And one of the things that you were saying was like, there was a fighter in me, or there was what was the language you used? Like
a warrior spirit inside of me.
that like competitive, self-determined you as a little kid was, there was something in there. And you talked about being in first grade and like this experience of like.
The teacher announced a reading contest, and whoever read the most books would win, and there'd be a prize. And I didn't even know what the prize would be. I didn't really care, but in my head I was like, oh, I'm going to win. And I'm going to be sure I'm going to win. And it's not like we charted every day who's read this many. So it was just like at the deadline.
You were flying blind.
You announce. And I read 234 books. and as a first grader, and the next person was like in the 40s or something. So it blew the second person away, but I didn't know. I was just like definitely wanting to win. And the prize was like a set of markers, a big book of amazing facts, which I still have on my bookshelf. And my daughter was helping me clean up some things the other day. And she's like, this one's like torn. The cover's torn. We can get rid of this one. I'm like, oh no.
No.
This was my first prize,
Yeah.
of first grade. And I was so excited to win. I mean, my teachers would often say, Jeanette's quiet. Like she was shy, which I don't love that word because I don't think I was shy. It was more of just like, I'm taking it in, But I had this inside of me where like, no, I want to win. So I graduated high school, valedictorian, and just love to win. But I'm competitive with myself, but I think I'm not necessarily competitive with others because I love seeing other people
My
win.
experience with you has always been insanely abundant. I think that would be the way that I would describe you as an abundant person.
I love that word.
And like a good energy person. Like
thank you.
Even from when we didn't know each other well, there's a feeling or there's an energy or a vibe of like somebody that actually wants to see you and is interested in what you've got going on.
Well, thank you.
Versus the opposite. All of us have experienced somebody that just doesn't care. That like, and
it's either what can you do for me or I'm out of here.
Or I don't care about you.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And like that never feels good.
No,
and
it doesn't feel good.
Like it feels like, your nature is abundant, which is like, I can't give you a better compliment.
That is a huge compliment.
Yeah.
I want to be abundant. And I feel like I am. And that's what the magazines have been is like, look at our community. Look at these entrepreneurs.
But fascinating to contrast that with actually insanely driven also. Like if you're valedictorian, you've got to have some, like I was talking to my daughter today driving to school. And we're talking about grades and she got a 4.0 last semester.
That's awesome.
And
what grade is she in?
She's a sophomore.
Okay.
But she's, for the first time probably ever, caring about it.
That's awesome.
And I think about being valedictorian, you're caring about it every semester. Like, you're driven.
Yeah. Every class, there's a scoreboard.
Yeah.
I didn't play a lot of sports, but school and business is my sport.
Yeah.
And I like to win.
That's so great. So cool. So you go Idaho Falls, graduate, great grades, go to BYU. Why BYU?
My parents went to BYU. I envisioned myself going to BYU. I didn't have anyone in my life at that point that said, you should apply to Stanford. You should apply to Harvard. You should dream bigger. My dreams weren't bigger than Idaho or Utah.
That was it. Yeah.
And so now I try to be that person who at least plants seeds, in young people of like, oh, have you thought of this?
Yeah.
Have you been to New York? There's Columbia University. What about Northwestern? And even if it doesn't change their trajectory, I hope they feel like, wow,
they dream bigger.
She thinks that I'm worthy of applying there. I could go there. So I didn't feel like I had someone helping me see that the world could have been bigger than that. But I also have no regrets because BYU was great. And I got my bachelor's and master's there. And it was really, I didn't realize it at the time, but that was the start of my network.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what the idea of building a network was about. That wasn't what my parents were all about. My dad was a school teacher. We lived in rural part of Idaho Falls. But in BYU, I didn't know I'd see those classmates again.
Yeah.
I didn't know that some of my teachers would end up being mentors or even business colleagues of sorts. But that's really what BYU was for me. And that's what I feel like education, of course, the paper is awesome at the end, have that degree. But the people that you meet, it's a huge part of your educational journey. It can be. It can be. If you're not one that just comes and sits in the back row and slips out as soon as possible and takes every online class available. You have to kind of intentionally build a network, but I think that's what college can be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of that.
So you soaked it up. Like you actually got the full college experience.
I feel like I did.
Yeah.
I feel like I did. When I was at BYU, I got invited back east to be on the NewsHour with Jim Lear a couple times. Do you know that show?
Yes, you were a star.
I was on the show twice. And in fact, I got in trouble for one of the times I went on because I was talking about, it was the 96 election. This is how long ago it was. So it was Clinton versus Dole.
Okay.
And I had the statistics department do this survey of students of their political beliefs. And 90% of students said they were Republican, but only about 50% were excited to vote for Dole. So I was just making the point on the show of there's a disconnect.
There's a disconnect.
Yeah. And, at the time, I think there were some donors or something that thought that I wasn't a great representation of BYU. So I got called into the president's office and stuff. But I had a great BYU experience. One of my roommates, I talked to her almost every day. And she was just a random roommate from Canada. And we connected and are still friends to this day. She's a huge part of my life.
That's amazing.
And I never would have met her, without that just get some random roommates kind of situation.
Yeah.
So I think college is it's a lot more than what happens in the classroom. It's your extracurriculars, it's your network, it's the dating, it's the roommates, it's figuring out how to manage your time and money for the first time maybe.
Yeah.
And making some mistakes with managing your time and money and then reaping the benefits or consequences of that. I'm a huge fan. I mean, I'm on the board at UVU, so I care about that school and education very much, but it's not just about the degree or what you're studying. It's the whole experience.
Yeah. So you went and had that experience, go make all the friends. Did your undergrad in business, right?
It was my minor. So my undergrad was journalism with a minor in business.
So journalism with a minor in business. And then you did your master's in what? Communications?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of with the intent to always write? Or what did you want to go do? Like, what was the...
I did. I wanted to be a writer. I kind of envisioned myself in Manhattan working at a magazine.
Yeah. So you started dreaming bigger at college.
I think so.
It started kind of expanding what you thought.
Right. And part of it was dating, and I mentioned that before, that I think that's a huge part of high school and college, introduced me to other families where the parents thought differently than mine, where they were entrepreneurs or big dreamers or things. And those things started to open doors for me.
Yeah.
And I started attending in Idaho Falls and Utah when I came down here, different galas and events and fundraisers and seeing this world that's now like a huge part of my world. So that was fun to be part of other people's
Did you
families.
always love it? Did you always love like that, like...
Because I love people.
Get dressed up, go celebrate, the highs. And
yeah, I think it's fun. Sometimes when you're on a Saturday night, you're like, do I really want to take off this T-shirt and put on some sequins?
Yeah.
But once I get there, I'm always loving it because there's always people there that I know and people there that I don't know that I can meet, and that lights me up. I think that's really fun.
We're in this crazy flux right now because, my college career and even my career was very different. Like, I was in college for a year before I dropped out, and met Chelsea 3 or 4 months into college, like robbed the cradle. Chelsea was 19.
Wow. So this is your freshman year?
This was, on paper, it was sophomore year, but freshman year there. Mm-hmm. She was a freshman, got married a year later, barely 20. And we were broke.
All right.
And so it's like right into work and worked for a couple years. And then the global financial crisis hit and it like jumped right into the next thing and kind of rode that for a long time. And so our and I look back and I'm like, so much of my success in my career was being narrow and focusing and actually not, I would network a lot within, I worked with 100,000 different kids over 15 years. So like I actually met tremendous amount of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was kids. It was 19 to 23-year-old college kids, that today it's a really robust network because they all grew up. But
together.
Then we were babies, you know what I mean? And so but now we're getting pulled into this world of like, there's a gala every night and we don't fully like it. You know what I mean? It's this push and pull of like, that'd probably be like important to go to, but I'd rather just like stay home, you know? And so like, it's an interesting, like which ones to say yes to and which ones to
yeah. And that's going to be the rest of your life. And I faced that too. I think the first 10, even maybe 20 years of the magazine.
Yeah.
I so much wanted to get the name out there of the business and to meet people.
It was part of your career.
Right.
Yeah.
And to meet people who I want to do a cover story on, but I didn't have their phone number. But if I've seen them at an event, I can say hi.
You network into it. Yeah.
And I wanted to open every door. Yeah. And so I was saying yes to everything. You want me to sit on this board? Yes. You want me to speak at this event, moderate, MC? Yes. Will you come to this ribbon cutting? Sure. And I was just going to all these places and planting all these seeds.
Yeah.
And now at this point, like all those seeds grew. And it's impossible. Like I
It's
have
competitive.
tonight,
Yeah.
there's like 2 or 3 events that I got invited
course.
to. And that has happened multiple times this past month of just being like, okay, which one? And what if I don't want to go to any of them? And so now it's hard because I don't have that same mentality of I need to plant a million seeds.
Yeah.
It's more of like, what should I focus on?
100%.
What should I focus on now? And yet everything still sounds fun. I still want to help people.
But I think there's an interesting, like, and I think there's a question for you is like, does that give you energy when you go to them? Like, does it
actually
still, does it still
for the
light
most
you
part.
up?
Yeah, it does for the most part because of the people that I'll reconnect with there and check on them and tell them congrats or how are they doing or, what are you working on right now? I love that. It lights me up to be around people.
Yeah.
It really does. But there's occasionally events I go to where I'm like, I probably could have missed this one.
Chelsea's going through this right now because like, she's just a force,
Absolutely.
and so
Love
she
her.
gets invited to be on a board and she's so flattered and it's like, oh, sweet. And she gets invited to be on 50 boards. And now it's like, whoa. Like, and so you really actually have to start like tightening up your, hey, what am I passionate about? Like what is aligned with my values? Like, and not because they're all kind of aligned,
right?
But like, what's the one that like truly gets me? Because you can't say yes to everything. You know what I mean?
You can't. And that's one thing I learned early on. It's actually been on my mind today. I went to a lunch just before this podcast with Mentors International, which I was on their board at one point. And Mentors has merged with other nonprofits. It's had a few different names through the years. And what they do is they help people in other countries with entrepreneurism, with mentors, help them start businesses, help them get the education they need and other services. And I was on that board. And I realized this was about 10 years ago that like, I'm actually not a specialist at this. I'm not really a world traveler. I don't speak other languages. And I basically had this meeting with myself where I'm like, what am I good at? What are the things like only I can do? And I decided Utah's my thing.
Yeah.
Like this state and particularly Utah Valley, but the state in general, this is my thing.
Yeah.
And so I want to focus here. I really like,
but
I'm not
how
the
fun,
person.
How fun is that?
Yeah, it's
because
totally
you
fun.
You could go as broad as the world would take you.
Right.
But to actually go narrow and just say where I live, where my kids go to school, where I do business is actually where I have the most passion. Yeah. And also where I can make the biggest
Where I can make the big difference, where I have a network.
Yeah.
So, but like in Peru, I don't know anyone. Yeah. Right. So I could sit in these board meetings and support this organization, which is awesome. But I don't know if that was the place for me. So I did what I'm not very good at and I stepped down from the board and just was like, I need to focus on Utah. Yeah. And I need to go all in on Utah. So the boards and things I focus on now, it's primarily Utah, women's issues and organizations and education.
So cool.
Those are my main focuses. And I love economic development. I love things related to growing Utah's business and growing the economy here.
So going back to you graduate college, when did you get married?
It was 6 months before I graduated from college.
Okay. So you dated kind of through college. You had the full college experience.
I did. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. It was really fun.
And so you get married, and something that we were talking about before was you described the first time where you realized I need to be an entrepreneur was being a mom and having kids.
Right. So I worked on my master's degree. I was also working at the Deseret News. I was doing those things simultaneously and was so looking forward to being a mom. I was 23 at this point. But I also was loving my career and doing well at the Deseret News and I had this fresh master's degree too and felt like I had a lot of opportunities and a trajectory there in the communications world. But every woman I knew was a mom and a stay-at-home mom. And I envisioned that for myself too. And so I was pregnant with my oldest. He just turned 28. So I've been thinking about him this week. And when he was born, like I worked until I went into labor. Yeah. Like I loved my job and said, I'll be back in 6 weeks, And as soon as that baby was in my arms, I'm like, oh no, I'm not going back.
This is what I want.
There was no remote work at that point.
Yeah.
It was, and Deseret News was downtown Salt Lake, which I loved. I loved the energy of a city. But I was like, I don't even know who to leave the baby with. Like, I don't know how this works. I don't know how to do that. So I didn't go back. And it was then that all of a sudden I was like, how can I do the things I love with communications and business? And I was like, I've got to be an entrepreneur. So motherhood led me to be an entrepreneur. I really don't think if for some reason I'd never gotten married or hadn't been able to have kids, I don't know if I ever would have found my entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
It was more of like, I need the flexibility. I've got to be the captain of my ship.
Yep.
And that's the answer. So at that point, I was like thinking back on my business classes, which I had only taken so I could write about business.
Yep.
That was my thinking at the time. And now all of a sudden I was like, no, I'm going to start a business. I don't even know how to do that, but that's what I'm going to do, because if I have a business, then I can hold the baby. I can work when he's sleeping. I felt like that was the answer.
Yeah.
And it's been a great journey. And I grew a business and a family at the same time. I have 5 kids, and they were born throughout the entrepreneurial journey.
So when I went to Harvard, they've got this program that's really exceptional on startups. And they gave this definition of entrepreneurship, and it's like rung in my ears from the day that I heard it, because it captures exactly what you're describing. It says entrepreneurship is the pursuit of opportunity without regard of resources currently controlled. And it's like, what do I want?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have the network.
Nope.
I don't have the money.
Nope.
I don't actually have the skill.
Right.
But that's what I want, and that's the entrepreneurial gap.
Mm-hmm.
And being an entrepreneur is being resourceful and figuring out how to go get the resources, whether it's people, whether it's money, whether it's whatever it is. And so it's interesting hearing you, one, use the language, and then 2, actually be a pure entrepreneur and just say, I'm going to go get the resources.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me about that, bridging that gap from this is what I want.
Right.
To building a company that, ends up being kind of like a pillar of, Utah County.
Well, and I love that you describe it that way. It's been so awesome. So yeah, we had no money, no network. We did have a starter home, and we had a little bit of equity in the home. And so we sold the home. That's how we printed the first issue of Utah Valley Magazine.
How cool is that?
So that was, the first issue came out September 2000.
And your husband was just down. He was just like, let's sell the house and start a magazine.
We had so much confidence that it would work. I also know how to live on almost nothing.
Yeah. So you were scrappy.
And so I was like, oh no, if we can just make 30 to 35,000 a year, we can do this. And I'll have the flexibility. I'll be able to hold the baby. I'll be able to do the work. And that was really the original vision. I didn't see 25 years down the road. I was just like, this could be a way to make an income right now. And so, we sold the home, moved back into an apartment. I had 2 kids at that point. So I was 25, like a 2.5-year-old and a baby. And, that first issue came out and it was so exciting. I can hardly look at it now. It wasn't good. It had design issues. It was not amazing, but I was so proud of it.
Isn't there magic in just starting?
I know. I'm actually glad I didn't know all the things I didn't know.
Yeah.
As a 25-year-old, I didn't know that people didn't always pay their bills, right? Because we sold ads in the first issue. We sold subscriptions. Not everybody pays their bills, and very few pay them in 30 days.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That would have scared me to death. We didn't have a bank loan. We didn't have any money from parents. We didn't have anything. Like, it had to work.
You were flying without a net.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I didn't know that that my bills would come in faster than people would pay their bills, and there would be that gap. So the first couple of years,
you're like, your business experience, and so this is so fascinating just listening to it. Alex Dunn, was and is like a dear friend and
He's
mentor
so great.
of mine.
Mm-hmm.
But his feedback on being an entrepreneur, he'll have people come in and say, hey, how do I do this, or how do and he's like, the best way to learn how to be an entrepreneur is to be an entrepreneur.
Jump in.
It's to start a business,
right?
Because there's just some of those lessons that, 1, they're hard to learn, and 2, you're never going to learn them right.
No.
Until somebody doesn't pay you.
Yeah.
Because you're like.
Yeah. If you have no safety net, you have to make it work.
Yeah.
And in the early years, I was wearing all the hats, right? So if an advertiser owed us money, I would go sit in their lobby.
Your collections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I need you to pay so I can pay my bill.
But
and I was
kind
just
of like
in the middle of everything.
Grader, like Pitbull, because you come across as sweet. But you there's some parts of business that are less sweet.
Collections is one of those. Yeah.
There's hard conversations that, you just get steamrolled if you're weak. You can't be weak. You know what I mean? So there's a difference between being kind.
Right.
And being weak, and
I think you can be kind and strong. at the same time. My favorite combination of humans is confidence and humility.
Yeah.
If someone has confidence and humility, wow, they have my respect.
That's a great combo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. So the early years, I mean, I was loving the interviews. I was loving that. I didn't really understand how to run a business. I learned everything one at a time.
You knew that the product was good.
I knew how to write.
Yeah.
I knew how to tell a story. The monetization was where the learning curve was.
Where you're figuring out like, how do we make money?
How do we make money, and how do we control our costs? Hiring a first employee felt like, oh, I'm taking a pay cut to hire someone to answer the phones. Just having that, I had to change my mindset on a lot of this. I had to develop more of a growth mindset of, hiring someone doesn't cost me money. It allows us to make more money. Yeah. There were things I had to evolve in my thinking. Which is hard. It's hard.
It's hard because like you're like, I can either keep it or invest it.
Right.
And investing in an employee is a tougher thing to conceptualize than put money in a building or in a business. You know what I mean? Because you're
well, you take a risk on every employee you bring on. You're bringing them into your family, basically. You're going to spend all this time with them. And then you're trusting them to do their job to help the business grow. Yep. And, I haven't batted 1,000 on that. We've had a few.
Hiring is so hard.
It's so hard.
It is so hard.
It's so hard. You can't tell from a resume.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I thought, I'll care about their grades. I'll care about their transcript. I'll care about the degree because I cared about those things. So I thought that's a metric, of it. But I soon learned someone's GPA isn't a predictor of how well they're going to do at your company and how much fun they're going to be to work with or not. Right? That's not really the metric, They need to have the skill set, whatever you're hiring them for. Of course, they need those technical skills, but it's the other half. It's their personality. It's their cultural fit. It's their work ethic. It's how are they going to react on the bad day when something didn't go right or they had to get some feedback or, those are the things that matter.
Harvard stories, but there was one of these, there's a professor, I forgot his name. He was Eastern European. He was my favorite professor at OPM. But his specialty was on hiring. Huh. And he had some crazy insights from his doctoral thesis on hiring.
Huh. What do you remember from that?
And his summary, it was 2 things. It was when you're hiring junior people, attitude and culture fit, but mostly attitude are the most important attributes to hiring somebody junior. Because you can train the skills that are needed. When you're hiring senior people, the specialty matters more than the attitude and the
that makes a lot of sense.
And his logic was when you're hiring a CFO, if that CFO can't do the job day one, they're not
Right. It doesn't matter how nice they are at the water cooler. They're not going to have
the grace or the time to be able to screw a lot of things up. But that junior person, you can screw a lot of things up because there's not as much consequence to the work that they're doing. And then over time, working harder, being a good teammate, listening, they end up getting the skills and becoming a great culture fit.
That's true. I mean, I don't know that I've ever heard it articulated that way, but I think you're exactly right with that. I will say hiring people and employing people, when I started the business, I was thinking about the product itself and how to make money with it. I didn't realize that hiring people and mentoring them would be so much joy, There's so much satisfaction in bringing on a BYU intern, and they're young and they're eager and they know a little, but you teach them more, and then they get better, and then they get married, and then they have a family. Just to be part of people's life journey has been the part of entrepreneurship that surprised me the most. That was the most satisfying. My employees have become some of my very best friends and family, and I care about them, and I go to their weddings, and sometimes I'm at the hospital when they're having babies, and I love being part of their lives.
How cool is that?
And I didn't realize that mentoring piece would light me up as much as it does. But I love it. And then there comes times when they're ready to move on to something else. Another entity that can pay them more or give them opportunities that they're not going to have at a small company. And I cheer them on. Sometimes I cry, when they're leaving, because I'm sad that, I'm sad a little bit, but I'm happy for them that they get to do that. And it's so cool.
So talk to me about the phases of that business. What's the phase of we're not going to make it versus the oh, we're killing it.
Yeah.
Like what, you know.
So in the 25 years, we had high highs and a few low lows. I feel like I was good enough at managing the money that it wasn't like we ever worried about payroll.
Yeah.
I was careful with that, and we didn't ever get in over our heads, and we never took on investors or a loan or anything like that. We just made it work, which I'm proud of that. And then when we went to sell, it was nice to not have to
have any debt.
Yeah, not to have to
be able
pay
to
anyone
make
else.
the decision.
Right. That was nice. That was nice. But so we started in 2000, 2001, .com bubble burst.
Yeah.
There were some difficulties there. Then things got better. We were growing a lot in 2004, 5, 6, 7. We were growing. We were adding titles. We were starting to do the Parade of Homes magazines around the state, some even around the country. Our Bride magazine was doing well. Business magazine was growing. Companies were hiring us to do publishing for them. And the Parade of Homes division was actually like our biggest money maker. There's a good profit margin in those products. And then the housing crisis.
Of course.
We got left holding the bag on a lot. We had a lot of developers, builders, realtors, people in that space that took out ads that then never
Couldn't
paid.
pay. Yeah.
So from one year to the next, it went from our best vertical, our best products, to our worst.
Gone.
And a collection issue that just ate me alive for a little while. And in the beginning, I was like showing up, trying to get collections, meeting them in the lobby, counting them, texting them, we need you to pay. And then I realized some of those efforts were just not worth it. I was showing up to bankruptcy hearings at some point, trying to be like, but you owe us money. But then I realized that's just
waste of time.
Yeah. And it just frustrates me, Yeah. So over time, I learned what percentage was going to be uncollectible. On average, this much is going to be uncollectible in a year on a product, a particular product. And so then I didn't care. When someone didn't pay us, I was like, yeah, I knew that would happen. That's that percentage that I planned for. And then I didn't have to have heartburn over it.
It wasn't as emotionally taxing.
No. I was like, I expected that, and I budgeted for that. So those are the kind of things I learned over time. So that 2008-9 housing crash, that hurt. But it also led to another vertical, because at that time, network marketing companies started picking up steam. People needed an extra $500,000 a month, and that business model was having an upswing, and we started publishing for them. So it's like we picked up a counter-cyclical vertical to the housing, to when the economy tanks, network marketing grows. And so we had products that counterbalanced each other.
Yeah.
So that was part of what made it pretty stable. I mean, for a print publishing company, which is primarily what we do events and we do some online things as well, but we're print. We've been print. To stay steady for 25 years has been pretty incredible. What's happened under the hood has changed a lot, but we've been able to stay pretty steady, which I'm so grateful for and proud of. And it's never going to be the biggest business ever, right? Like we wrote about so many businesses. One of the things that I'm proud of, we started the UV50 to name the top 50 businesses every year.
Yeah.
And so since 2008, we've been doing that. And these companies are outpacing, outscaling, like they're doing awesome. And I loved that. I also knew that my company, it wasn't going to be that.
Yeah, it's not built to be that.
It's not built to be that, which is one reason that I started to feel like it was time to make a change.
Yeah.
When I did a cover story on Stephen Covey, which was 2009, a few years before he passed away. I'm so glad that I got to do that cover interview with him. He said there's a difference between 20 years of experience and 1 year of experience 20 times.
Yeah.
And I was starting to feel like the magazine was the latter.
Yeah.
Where it was kind of the same thing, the same financial metrics, similar challenges, similar opportunities.
Yep.
And I was starting to feel like I wasn't really growing anymore, even though I was loving it.
Yeah.
But it was like, I think I've written enough about these other entrepreneurs and businesses, and I think I have the skill set to do something different.
Yep.
And so that's why I started to be open to new chapters. And I think that's a spiritual principle too, chapters. When God created the earth, he did it one day at a time.
Yep.
He did a chapter at a time. And at the end, we have this beautiful earth with all the elements and everything as part of it. And I started to see my life a little bit that way. And so even though it was hard and a little bit painful to be like, I think this chapter, I think I need to turn the page.
Yeah.
It was like I knew for my own growth, my own soul, that I needed to.
Was it just getting easy?
I was getting a little bit lazy. Like
okay.
I was,
you weren't grinding the same way that you were.
No, I wasn't. Yeah. I wasn't as hungry. My articles were always the last to be done because it's like the night before we go to the printer. Oh my goodness, I need to write that.
I got to go put that together.
So I wasn't. I think my best cover stories were
When you were younger. Yeah.
I actually think they were.
Because you cared more?
I cared.
It would get like all of you?
I also had a little bit of like, I still have something to prove. And then I got like, I know how to write something quickly. And then I think I just, and I got busy. I got sitting on all these other boards and my family was growing. And so I didn't have as much time or energy or bandwidth to just sit down and write this best-selling piece.
Some of the people that motivate me the most, and I think this is one of the reasons I'm like so inspired by my wife right now.
She's so awesome. You lucked out.
Oh, 100%.
She did too, though. You guys are a great match.
I love when people recreate themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so hard.
Yeah.
Because you have to go backwards before you go forward. And I like, for me in my career, I look at like, there's these Steve Youngs and the Kobe Bryants and Shaquille O'Neal and these different like athletes.
Right.
And I could always relate with them so much because the work that I did was so specialized that I was really good at a very narrow thing. And when I had to go like get into a new career, I wanted to stay in the thing that I was really good at because I was strong there. Where the other ones I was like, but I was always so inspired by like a Steve Young or some of these guys that were
they recreated themselves,
but then went back and recreated themselves and were phenomenal business people, not phenomenal specialists or athletes. But what you're describing right now is kind of that process of recreation where you're like, it would have been way easier for you not to do what you're doing now and to actually like just stay in that sweet
spot. Stay in the lane, keep printing the magazines.
Stay in the wake, you know.
So in the recreation, some of the skill sets transfer. You know, for Steve Young and Kobe Bryant, like the work ethic, the consistency, the tracking your progress, the learning from your mistakes, you know, all that you take with you to a new chapter. So I feel like with the chapters that I'm in now, like my skill set does transfer.
Yeah.
And even the journalistic side, knowing how to sit down and talk to people, get them to open up, ask them questions. Like I'm hiring people now, you know, I'm basically doing that interview with them, getting to know them and learning some stories and then figuring out if they're a fit. And it does transfer, but I will say it's like exciting to do something new at this.
Stretches you.
Yeah. Like all of a sudden, like I see your business books here. I find myself pulling business books and magazines off the shelf now that have been gathering dust because I'm like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I've got a company. It already has a culture. Right. But now I have a whole new blank canvas of a chapter to be like, okay, what was that again about how to adjust a culture and how to be a leader. And so all those things feel fresh and exciting again. But it is hard to be the person in the room that knows the least.
Yeah.
That's really humbling. Yeah. And you're like, do I ask what that means or do I look that up later? You know, I'm supposed to be the leader and yet I don't know what you just said. I didn't understand.
So how do you deal with that? Like when you're supposed to be the leader and you actually like, you're completely ignorant on certain aspects. Like how do you do that in a way that you don't lose credibility?
There definitely have been times I've been Googling things, you know, under the table. Yeah. But it comes back to that combination I love, which is confidence and humility.
Yeah.
Like I try to show up with that. So like when I'm leading a meeting, I try to do it with confidence and so glad you're here. We're at a great company. The future's bright. But then I try to lean into that I'm new. You know, I'll say like, you guys know I brought fresh eyes here and that means I didn't know what that acronym meant. Yeah. You know, can you talk me through that? There might be others in the room that don't know either. So let's jump into that for just a second. Yep. And I've tried to lean into that of you guys, you'll always outpace me. You'll always have 30 years on me in this industry.
Yep.
And I would be inauthentic for me to act like I know everything.
Yep.
And I think actually my vulnerability and my ability to learn and say, can you teach me that? Can you help me understand that? I think has built a rapport and has helped build the confidence. And I think that's been good. I feel like I've brought my femininity to a man's world of commercial real estate.
Which if you can thread the needle like you have a superpower. You know what I mean? Because if you can actually bring your strengths, but also have it integrate into something that has been that way for a long time. Right. Like you didn't build that company.
No.
So you're stepping into a culture that's not your culture.
No.
And you have to mold it. One, you have to adapt to what's there, but also you want it to be something that you put your signature on. And And you bring your strengths to it. You know what I mean?
So, for example, on one of our retreats for the top producers, I had him do what's basically speed dating. Okay. So I have these brokers in different offices that know each other kind of, but some of them not at all. And so I had him line up. I mean, this was like my girls' camp hat on. Like, line up, let's 3 minutes. These are questions to ask. And they were like, they didn't want to do it. This is lame. What's she doing? But all of them at the end were like, that was cool.
Yeah.
Like I was face to face with people I hadn't talked to. And then it led to many conversations that they finished later. Yeah. And so it's that kind of thing where they never would have thought to do that themselves. That wasn't part of their culture. That's a tiny little example, but just me bringing in, hey, we're going to shake this up. You know, we're going to have some fun.
We were just upstairs and kind of going around, you know, our team, and our team was all white males from BYU that graduated in finance.
Right. Yep.
And
they're sharp.
And they're really sharp, but like hire one and he hires his friend and that's just kind of where we ended up.
Right.
Well, our last couple of hires have been women with diverse backgrounds. And it's crazy. You know, I was talking to my business partner the other day and I'm like, I think our culture is the best that it's ever been. And I think a lot of it comes to diversity in work and career experience, and also diversity in like thought and even gender, like that. There's magic in the differences.
Absolutely.
When it comes together and, you know, when everybody's leaning in. But we're experiencing that right now where we just have a better culture. It's more well-rounded.
Right.
It's more human. There's more soul to it. Anyway.
If everyone around the table thinks the same thing, you're not all needed.
It's a problem.
It's a problem.
Yep.
You don't need 10 clones of each other around a table trying to solve a problem. You actually need very different opinions, experiences, backgrounds.
Even diversity in career experience has mattered so much to us. We have an advisory board that has people that are in their 60s that are, you know, have been through a lot of like the core parts of their career and are more in kind of the mentorship stage. And our business is so much better because of the Brian Murphys of the world.
Oh, he's such a good man.
You know, are legends. But they'll actually lean in and hold our hand, and like we can go to him on our most important or a Blake Moderzinski, you know, some of these legends that have just like been doing it longer than, you know.
And Blake and Brian are both so generous with their time and their learnings. They're not in competition with anyone. So why would they? They're playing their own game and they're winning. They've always won. So now they can help the next generation. And I think that's so cool to watch.
We made this key hire just barely in our general counsel role and a you know compliance role. And this individual, we had him interview every person on our team, but then we sent him to Brian. And he goes to Brian's house for 5 hours, and then Brian texts me, and it's just like, you'd be really lucky to hire that person. And like, as far as like validation, it's like, huge. You're kind of like, hey, I think this is the right move. And all of a sudden you get that text and you're like, oh, sweet. I knew I was right, you know?
Yeah, that's good.
Anyway, so it's fascinating, you know, as it comes together. And I'm sure you're dealing with this right now, which is like sometimes the new hires after you're on board end up being really helpful for the culture, because bringing in people with fresh eyes and fresh perspective that can build off of like what you're trying to build.
And they've only known me as the leader, not the previous leader. Right. It's helpful. It's helpful for changing that. But I do agree, like that diversity of age and experience, I love that socially too. I live in a neighborhood right now where we have people in their 20s, 30s, up through the 80s. And I think it makes for a great neighborhood.
Yeah.
When I was raising my kids, we were in a different neighborhood where we were all the same age. Yeah. And that was fun too. There were a million kids running around. Every age group had a million kids. But I love right now that there's people, in their 80s that are just so wise, and they're not in a hurry, and they know what's really important, and they give such great advice. And then you have the kids in their 20s that are so eager and trying to figure things out, and I can help them. And then, the people in their 80s can help me. And I think that's such a beautiful thing.
I think about me and Chelsea had success at Vivint. and it was post global financial crisis, and bought a house in a neighborhood, the Berkshires. And it's a Utah County neighborhood, really nice neighborhood.
Right.
And I was 27 and Chelsea's 24.
Amazing.
So we're babies.
Yeah.
And everybody in the neighborhood was 10 to 15 years older.
So how was that for you?
It was so amazing. Like
cool.
we just had these mentors that were our friends. They were our neighbors, but they were also like 10 years ahead of us with their kids. 10 to 15 years ahead of us with their business and their careers. 10, and to this day, like I just have had people that have held my hand and like brought me along. I was, there's a guy named Ty Mattingly. Do you know Ty?
Yeah. He lives right next door to the Lewises, or did, right?
So we're all neighbors. Like that was our neighborhood. So the Lewises were our neighbors and Ty but I remember I was traveling a lot for work, and he was at my house countless times. Like the washing machine goes out, the gas is leaky.
And he's there helping.
He's everything. Like, and he was just like, you're endeared to these people that just cared about you. But so much of it was, Ty's 20 years older than me. And he'd already had his success in business, and his family was a little bit older.
Right.
And so there's just some wisdom. Yeah. I think about how much my life has been like blessed by having that experience,
And he looks at you and he probably sees himself from 20 years ago or something, and how you're hustling and traveling. And he's like, I'm not hustling and traveling in the same way, but let me help your family
and like stop hustling and traveling so much. Like, chill out, like one less trip. And I had this, I was actually talking about this experience today. So we have a plane. BYU's playing Texas Tech tomorrow.
They are. Big game.
It's a really big game. Yeah. And so it's booked to go down there tomorrow morning. And we've got 5 kids from 4 years old to 17. And there's like 5 things tomorrow. Saturday afternoon, from kids
You're in
games,
the thick of it.
violin,
all the things.
cheer comp, and got pressure from Chelsea. Like, hey, tomorrow's a lot, but I haven't canceled the plane. So there's still this like, I really want to go to that game. And
that game's gonna be pretty good. That's a pretty hard choice.
So this morning I decide I'm going. I'm gonna go. So I go in talking to Chelsea, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go. Something keeps bringing me back to it. I'm gonna go. And she's like, hey, talk to Ava. She's got a, cheer comp. Just make sure she's cool with it. So I go in there and I'm like, hey, Chelsea or Ava, big game. I've got some investors going down. Can I have your permission to miss your cheer comp? There's a bunch of them, but I just want to make sure you're cool with it. And she's like, it's my last year cheering. I'd really like you there. And I'm like, done. Like, plane's canceled.
Wow. Good job, Dad.
But I was surprised.
Right.
I was actually surprised that she...
That's not where I thought that story was going.
I didn't know. I was actually didn't think it was going there either. Like, I just figured that my daughter would be like, oh, yeah, no problem. Catch you on the next one. And by her saying, like, no, this matters. But I think about Ty, and, like, I can remember getting this feedback from him, like, he stopped working at a certain point. He'd made a ton of money, and he had chances to like go pursue bigger things. And he ended up coaching his kids through middle school and high school, and probably sacrificed, career prospects. I mean, he was working with Eric Schmidt and a lot of like the early tech guys, and kind of made the deliberate choice he was going to put more time and effort and energy into family. And I remember hearing this at like early on in my career and just being like, there's time to make hay, and I got to go, you know, and naturally, like, that's more natural for me just to work harder than to not, Anyway.
Well, good for you. That's a hard choice. And I think it's maybe even harder for women, to balance that career because you're the mom and the kids often prefer the mom, to tuck them in and all of that. And it's hard. I do feel like with my publishing company, I could have grown it bigger if I was willing to give up more time with my kids, but I wanted to be home with my kids. I didn't want a nanny to raise them. So I had kind of like these checks and balances I'd have for myself because I wanted my kids to feel like I was there.
Yeah.
And so that was, some choices that I made that the business, let's have, I want it to grow. I mean, this is our livelihood, but it's okay if I don't scale the highest mountain of business this year, And I'm glad now that I look back and my kids are mostly grown, like I'm so glad I had them.
Yep.
I'm so glad I didn't say, oh, this will hurt my career, because they're my best friends and I'm hopefully theirs and I love cheering them on and what they're doing. And so I'm glad for that. But it's hard because there is a time to make money.
Yeah.
And balance.
It's absolutely not black and white.
No, it's not.
Like it is an art, and it is. I remember there was a guy I worked with named Matt Eyring that I remember him giving advice about career, and he had worked for InnoSight Consult. He worked at worked with Tom Peter. Oh, who's the guy? Medtronic had worked with, really, he's a professor at Harvard that was phenomenal. But he talked about different stages in his career where he was on a flight 250 days a year,
That's tough.
And he had just said, there is no like balance. It's kind of, you're in an airplane and sometimes one of the wings gets a little higher and you've got to adjust it. And, his feedback was you kind of have to adjust to what life gives you. And it's going to be like strategically unbalanced.
Right. And I think I hope when we're both, toward the end of our lives that we'll look back and we'll see a life of balance. Just not every day was balanced, right? But like as a whole, there was that balance. Hopefully that's the goal, right? Of family and career and all that. Because honestly, one of the phrases that I don't love is when people say no one on their deathbed wishes they'd spent another day at the office.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't love that saying.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes what people are saying is any time spent at the office was not useful.
Yeah.
And that's not true. Because if I get to the end of my life and I hadn't done anything with my skill set or opportunities, I would be sad about that.
I've actually never thought about that. But I have thought about this is core to the way that I see the world, which is business is a spiritual game.
It is. It's creation.
It is creation, and the mentors and the thought leaders that I respect the most, the Stephen Coveys, the Tom Peters, the Clayton Christensen's, the Tony Robbins, they'll capture this in different language, but they're all saying the same thing, which is that process of building a business is a spiritual experience,
right?
That you have people's lives are somewhere captured in that culture 40 to 60 hours a week,
right?
And it can either be a culture that's empowering, that's respectful, that helps people build their dreams, or the opposite. And that's why it's sacred ground. When you're talking about the employees that you hired and mentored and grew and that they leave you and there's tears and weddings. I mean, that is a human spiritual experience. And
business is personal. It's very personal.
Bringing that back to the deathbed kind of saying like that work in the office and building a business is not wasted time.
I absolutely don't think it is.
That's done right. It's really special.
I know. I mean, we're divine beings with these capabilities.
Yeah.
And I think part of those capabilities for many are to build businesses and to build careers, build wealth in some cases that then can build UVU like you and Chelsea are doing and the many good things that you do. That happens because you created a business, you put in the work, you fostered a team where people were motivated and people helped build and all that. It's really spiritual. It's really powerful to me. And I think it's part of my divine makeup and yours and so many in this community that I see like building these businesses and then doing such good things with their blessings and that gets multiplied more.
Yeah.
That idea of restoration, the law of restoration or karma or the secret, that people call it different things. But that idea of what you put out grows and then you have more to give. And I see our community here up and down the Wasatch Front full of people that are in some ways quietly giving and in some ways putting their name on it. And both things are valid and important, you know, and finding solutions to the problems they see. They're not just being like, somebody should do something. They're like, oh, I'm that somebody.
Yeah.
What could I do? And I think that's what makes this state so special.
So I'm gonna ask you some tough questions.
Okay, let's hear it.
Who's the most inspiring leader that you ever interviewed?
I mean, the first one that came to mind was Carrie Clark. I really love her. Do you know her?
Yeah, and what is it?
Because she is soft and bold. She can set you straight. And the first time I met her, I was moderating a women's panel at a business event, and she showed up. And the first thing she said to me is, "Why are we having a women's panel? We should just be having a business leader panel." Because when you call it a women's panel, the men aren't going to come listen to us, and you're going to have men on panels all day about business, and then you have the women's panel. And I was like, point taken. Okay. I think she's powerful. She's been through a cancer journey, so have I. She helped me through that. She's sent kids on missions and weddings, and she's really organized in that. She helped me with that. When I've gone through career changes, I've turned to her because she's had a lot of career changes. So I like that she's the whole person.
Yeah.
And I like that she is soft. I've seen her cry multiple times. I've turned to her when I've been in tears.
Yeah.
And she handles that emotion, but she also just sets you straight. And I need a little bit more of that in me. So I love her. Working with Astrid Tuminas has been awesome on the board of trustees the past 4 or 5 years. She has a vision, and she wants people, she's a good leader. She can articulate what she wants and has a varied background with lots of chapters like we were talking about.
Yeah.
So I think she's awesome. Fraser Bullock is someone that I think he has that confidence, humility combo that I think is powerful. As part of our UV50, we gave out Lifetime Achievement Awards, multiple, every year we would do that. Alex Dunn and Todd Peterson, we did them together one year. And so I love sitting down with them. Blake Roney was one of those, Gail Miller, another one that we gave one to, Warren Osborne, right before he passed away. And so I love honoring these people and getting to know them. Selfishly, it's like, if I write about them or give them an award, that means I get to spend a few hours with them doing the interview and the video. And so I get to learn at their feet and then share what I learned with everybody else. Yeah. So that's been pretty cool.
Who's inspired you the most?
I mean, it's hard for me to say the most, right? But like one day that will always just stand in my memory. It was the day I interviewed Larry King. And the same day I interviewed this woman running a nonprofit. They just both happened to be on the same day. And I was nervous for Larry King because this was earlier in my career, and I thought he'd analyze my questions and maybe think I wasn't up to snuff because he's so good. Like he's the world's greatest interviewer. But he treated me so kindly. He had Hillary Clinton on a couple nights before our interview, and I felt like he treated me the same way that he treated her. And that was pretty instructive to me. And then I interviewed this woman who ran a nonprofit later that day. Humble home in South Utah County. Like I could see light under the door. The couch we were sitting on sunk to the floor practically, like humble circumstances. And so one of the questions I asked was, what's motivating you to run this nonprofit, which helps kids in foster care? And she started tearing up and she said, I've just been so blessed with so much. And I'm looking at the circumstances thinking, this does not look like you've been blessed with much, but just her approach of like, I've been given this beautiful life. And so the juxtaposition of Larry and his success and his wealth and opportunities and her and respecting them both in the same day. Yeah. On the way home so Larry was in the morning and she was later in the afternoon. And I cried all the way home of just like, I can't believe this day I've had of these two people that I love and respect for completely different reasons. Yeah. Right. And they're both making the world a better place. And I feel like I made a great connection with both of them. And we all of us treated each other with respect. And I'm like, that's the beauty of life. Yeah. No matter what your title is or what your bank account says, we're all trying to make the world a better place. And when we connect as humans, that's the good stuff. That's the blessings. That's wealth. That's richness, is having those relationships and those chances to sit down and just really connect as people and come away having learned something, having been inspired about something, have an idea for what you want to maybe do more or less of in your life. I mean, those are the days that I think, wow, I feel inspired. I'm excited for tomorrow. I'm excited to see the next interview and just all these amazing people that are living life. And then when they're generous enough to share what they've learned and their time, that's huge. And then with someone like me, if they shared their time with me, then I can put it in word and in different things to help spread the word. And I just love the people in our community that have let me sit down with them. It's been an honor.
What advice would you give yourself as a 23-year-old Jeanette?
So it took me longer than I wish it would have to be confident and really own who I was. I feel like, I'm just this girl. I'm just from Idaho. I just have kids. I'm just a mom. I drive a minivan, and I didn't throw my shoulders back of I belong in this room. Yeah. I wish I would have gotten there sooner.
Yeah.
I felt, the imposter syndrome, I didn't know that term at the time, but I definitely felt that.
Yeah.
And I wish that I would have gotten past that a little sooner. Definitely give me that advice. Also, I think I would have taken a few more risks maybe. I was one that wanted to get out of debt. We paid off our house. This was, I can't remember what year it was exactly, but for our anniversary, we paid off our house.
How special is that?
It felt pretty cool. Yeah. And then we walked to Walmart and bought a Ben & Jerry's, and it was fun. But then also instead of paying off the house, if I would have bought land or fourplexes, that actually would have been a better approach, would have had. Was
it just a training thing? Was it just didn't have the right mentors or didn't have maybe the right frame on how to build wealth or invest or whatever it was?
No mentors on building wealth, no method to do that at the time. My dad and father-in-law are school teachers. Yeah. That's a different trajectory. That's a very safe and secure route that comes with a safe and secure retirement.
Yep.
You're never going to grow, but you're never going to get fired. It's a beautiful life in a lot of ways. But wealth management, no clue.
Yeah.
Right. And so just in my mind, I was like, get out of debt. It's safety. It's, that part of me that was afraid of being poor, afraid of making a wrong decision was well, that's the safest thing to do. I
remember, I grew up LDS. You hear from parents and everybody else, hey, pay off your house, all this stuff. I remember the first time where that got challenged. There was a hardcore finance guy from New York, a guy named Tanguy Serra, that he was the original CEO of Vivint Solar.
Okay.
But he was brilliant, still brilliant. Huh. And I remember talking to him and I was making really good money. We just sold to Blackstone, pretty young.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And he, and I asked him what he would do. And he's like, I'd take the biggest loan you can get on your house. I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, oh, debt's just a hedge against inflation. I'm like, I don't even know what that means.
Uh-huh.
And here was a guy that was a stone cold killer. That's what he did all day, every day was finance. And he was speaking it to me as if it's just this is so common sense.
Yeah, so obvious.
Why wouldn't you go get a 2.6% loan with a 30-year AM at 10% interest only and go take that and put it anywhere? Put it in the stock market, put it in real estate. Right. And I said, well, if I did that, where would you put it? He's like, I'd put it in real estate in New York or San Francisco. I'm like, really? Why? He's like, those are the two hubs of the world. One's for technology, one's a financial hub. There's scarcity of supply. If you buy anything there, it'd be worth double in 5 to 10 years. And I look back now when he gave me that advice, it was probably 2012, 2013. If I would have done
so you didn't do that?
Didn't do that. And didn't really have any way to do that in a smart way. But I did take his advice on getting the biggest loan that I can get on my house at cheap interest and put it to work. And it's made me tens of millions of dollars from that day till now.
That's so awesome.
From a person that it was a casual conversation. It wasn't it wasn't like, hey, let me sit you down and give you some advice.
This formal financial.
No, it was just him almost not being disgusted, but kind of being surprised that I was so naive. And I didn't even know I was naive. I was just I didn't grow up with anybody coaching me on this stuff. You know what I mean? So it's fascinating.
So the time I learned what you're just saying, so Scott Keller, when we dug the hole for the Keller building at UVU, which is the business building, which, you're so involved in now. So when we had that groundbreaking for that, Scott and Karen Keller spoke. And Scott's speech was like the most unique speech I'd heard at a groundbreaking. And he was sharing like his business advice. And it was things like always look tan so your clients know that you're making enough that you can be on the golf course. But he also said, take out the biggest loan you can qualify for, pay it off, and then do it all over again. And I remember sitting there in that tent being like, huh. Like I've been the pay off your debt person, like in my head.
Yeah.
And then this guy who's funding this business building, who's a huge success and has Wolverine Cross, has all these things. He's saying his strategy is to borrow as much as you can, pay it off, do it again.
Yeah.
Like it, from that moment on, I started thinking about money a little differently because I was like, that's not how I've been thinking.
Yeah.
And it changed kind of how I've thought about things. I've told him thank you for that a number of times because it opened my eyes.
Isn't it crazy? Like when you hear something at different points in life and why it just hits.
It just hits. Like you're ready to hear it. And sometimes the people who say it, they've even forgotten they said it by that night.
Yeah.
Right? Because it didn't matter that much to them, but like it sticks in your head.
Of course.
As something. So that was meaningful. I'm still learning. I mean, we just had the exit, right? And it's not same exit that like you and others have had, but it's still like more money than I've ever had. And so figuring out what to do with that now. What's my new philosophy?
So exciting.
It's my new strategy.
How exciting.
I know. I don't feel like a lot of women in this state get that chance to start a business, grow it, exit 25 years later. And
like to stay in business for a year or 5 years or 10 years is a big accomplishment.
It's true.
To sell a business is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
To build something that is good enough that somebody would want to buy it. Yeah. And actually has enough structure and systems and process that you don't need to be there for it to keep going. I think it's understated how hard that is. And so you got to be so proud.
I am proud. It's one of those things that you don't really get till you've gone through it.
Yeah.
You know, the emotion of it, the logistics of it. Yeah. Like someone could have told me what it was going to be like, but until I was sitting in those meetings, signing that last DocuSign and everything, like those were emotions that I just had to experience to even fathom what it would be like, you know? Yeah. And for so many people that I've interviewed through the years, when I've asked them about their exit, because I've always been fascinated with it, right? Like all of the entrepreneurs.
What is that experience?
Yeah, tell me about that. Tell me about the day you closed and like your first big splurge and all that. Yeah. And almost all of them have said, like the day you close is kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah.
It was the journey. Like as you look back, like that was the joy, that was the payoff. Was actually the climb. And sometimes I've been like, seriously? But now you have like millions in your bank account. Isn't that pretty cool? Yeah. But like now that I've gone through it, I realize like the journey, the nostalgia, the experiences, the people, the hard days, the good days, like that is what is what I take away with. You know, that's the payoff is.
But for some, like obviously like money's a driver for you, but it's not the reason that you're doubling down to go build again. Like there's obviously like some purpose more than money. Because at this point you could check the financial box.
I just, I don't want to sit around and garden and read books. Like
you love business.
I like being busy. It's a game to me. It's like, what can I learn? What can we grow? What can we win? What are the metrics? What does this look like compared to last month, compared to last year? And that's really fun and it's really rewarding.
Yeah.
And so, that's my metric at this point is like, am I enjoying what I'm doing? Am I learning? Am I growing? Am I making an impact? I love meeting new people. And that's been fun with this new chapter is I have 200 new people in my ecosystem in the company that are my new friends, that I never would have met. And I get to learn from them and maybe them from me a little bit. And it's just really cool. Yeah. So I don't think I'm wired to
stop.
I don't know. Like I can't imagine really retiring as far as just like never having any place to go.
Yeah.
I sit on a lot of boards. I hope I get to sit on some cool boards forever because there's so many good causes. I love sitting on boards with cool people that I can learn from. And that's often been through the years, like the metric. If someone invites me to do something, I'm like, well, who would I get to sit around the table with? Seriously, I could learn from, Blake Moderzitsky and Scott Smith and, all these people. I'm like, that's great.
Yeah.
I'll put in the time.
Of course.
I'll help, collate the papers if I can sit around the table with this caliber of people. So I want to keep doing that,
Chelsea partnered with Kristen Andrus on this women's group. And Kristen's just a force of nature.
Oh, she absolutely is.
Like she is just she's got a motor.
Yep.
And
she's one of a kind. I love her.
So she's like bringing Chelsea along, and Chelsea's just loving it.
Yeah, she's awesome.
But she invited her to this board meeting earlier this week, and I can't even remember the organization, but it was like the who's who. It was everybody that was there, and she's talking to me about who she's learning from. And it's what you're describing. It's like there's some rooms that if you're just in that room, you're just going to get better because of all of the amazing people that are in there. And that's so special. You know what I mean? Like you pinch yourself to be able to say like, how is this my life?
Exactly.
I was like a little kid studying communications.
and now I'm at the governor's gala.
Somehow I'm at the governor's gala, you know what I mean? And you're like, yeah, you're doing it.
It's cool. Kristen Andrews is amazing. She's a magnet for goodness. She makes things happen. She's incredible. We've gotten to be good friends. She's new on the UVU Board of Trustees. I'm excited to work with her on that. She and I have worked together on Utah Philanthropy Day.
Yeah.
We emceed that together last year. She's great. And that's what Utah is to me. I just love people like that are just jumping in, like in their corner of the world, making it a better place.
So cool.
And bringing other people along, It's really cool.
Well, hopefully you know that I respect you and I admire you. There's people that are like a light and are willing to like let their light shine. And I think there's a tendency there, whether it's fear, where you don't want to put yourself out there because you don't want to look stupid, or you don't want to, look too ambitious or eager. And I don't know what it is about you, but you've got an ability to shine.
Thank you.
And it's very authentic. You know what I mean? It feels like it's coming from a good place and with a heart to go make a dent in the world. And it's fun. It's fun to be around people that are hard charging, but doing it from a place of just a desire to just go make a dent in the world. And I think we're attracted to those type of people.
Well, thank you. That's how I feel about you and Chelsea. At the scholarship ball a few weeks ago, I loved what you two shared about your journeys, and I learned some new things about your journeys that night, and ways that UVU played into that.
Yeah.
And I love that you're vulnerable and you're sharing those parts of the story that are emotional.
Yeah.
And times, when we're having our hardest days, sometimes we think I'm never going to tell anyone about this day, but then later when you have some perspective, you're like, actually. I'm telling someone about this day.
Yeah, this is the
contrast. This is the day I have to tell you this story so that this story makes sense, that I started here and came here. So anyway, I've loved watching you and Chelsea and the good that you do throughout the community and with this podcast. It's awesome.
Before we wrap, talk to me about faith and talk to me about how that has factored in the journey.
So before we started the magazine, I felt like we kept getting asked to do service projects. We kept getting asked to go take dinner to this person or go to, and I felt like in a way that was a test to see, because I was asking for God to help me start this business. And I felt like he was asking me to help other people. And if I could do that, he'd help me. And I don't know that it was a tit for tat, but like at the time I felt like I want to show him that I'm going to be a good person. And we started with prayer. And as our staff grew, we continued to say a prayer at staff meeting. I know this is so unconventional, right? But I didn't want God to feel like, hey, we don't need you anymore. So I continued to pray and ask for his help and to thank him for the help. If we sent a magazine to the printer and it was profitable, I feel like heaven helped us with that, and helped soften the hearts maybe of the sponsors and advertisers to see our vision and to jump on board. I feel like God's played a huge role in my business, but also in just me as a person and me and my journey.
Yeah.
And I'm so appreciative of that. I feel like we're divine beings that come down here with divine characteristics, and then we get to help grow them. We get to make choices. We get to, and so there's all of that. There's who we came as and then who we grow into. But I love it. And I've served in a lot of church capacities. In the 25 years I've had the magazine, for 13 of those years, I was either Relief Society president, Young Women's president, or Stake Young Women's president. And I'm not saying that to be like, oh, I'm cool. It's just like, it's been a busy life.
You've always been a leader.
It's been a busy life. I think it's fun. I'm an idea person. Like I love brainstorming, right? I love ideas, and then I need a team to help me pull it off. But I feel like the skills that I use in business, I use in church, and vice versa. You know, like the first time I sat down at a state council when it's like almost all men and like a couple women. You know, I think a lot of women are intimidated in those settings. I wasn't. I'm like, I do this every day. You know, I'm okay here. Like I know how to speak up. Like, and even if someone cuts me off or someone like didn't like my thought, well, I'm not going to cry afterwards. Like this is just kind of how it is. And so I feel like my faith and my business life, it's all one.
Yeah.
I'm one person in all the places, you know, and I don't think I shy away from that. You know, I mean, our publications are not faith-based necessarily, but many of the people we've interviewed through the years are faithful people.
Yeah.
And so it's come up in their story. You know, they've shared their story of how their faith journey or their mission or their whatever. And I have included that, you know, because that is part of their journey. And so it's been fun to help amplify people's faith stories, even in a secular magazine, you would say, like ours, you know. And I feel like I'm, you know, I'm someone who acknowledges heaven, and I feel like my ancestors are part of my life. I have two grandpas I was super close with. One was a hobby investor. You know, he was a mailman, and then but he learned to play the stock market, and he taught me what he knew, and that was the way we connected. Even till he died, we'd talk about Google and Apple. What stocks are you looking at? You know, and that was fun. And so I think about him a lot. Sometimes even ask if he can to help me with something. And so I definitely think that this life is amazing, and we're here, but it's not the whole story.
Yeah.
You know, it's just part of the journey. And so my faith has been a huge part of that. And I haven't made any decision without like asking for a lot of help from above. And sometimes I feel like I get guidance, and other times I don't, you know, and then I'm making a choice, and then hopefully I'll feel along the way if I'm headed the right direction or not. You know, but there have been times where I feel like I've had direct answers. And starting the magazine company was one of those. I felt like we were blessed. I felt like we were guided. I felt like things fell into place, even though they shouldn't have maybe. And a 25-year-old with no network probably shouldn't have been able to start a magazine, you know. But it worked, and I felt guided. And I want to continue to feel guided. I don't want to get to the point where I'm like, I don't need any help from above. No, I want to always acknowledge that I do need help from above. And when things go well, or when I learn things, I want to be that person who thanks God and thanks the people around me who made that possible. Because I mean, I'm so grateful and proud of the life that I have, but it's also like I didn't get here alone. You know, certainly not. I have a family. I have colleagues. I have business partners. I have, you know, heaven helping me, and so I want to always acknowledge that.
No, special as that. Again, before we wrap, so you're still young in your career. Like when you look at the arc of life, and especially 2025,
right?
And like the potential, like what aspirations do you have? Like, because you've accomplished, like I'm just here listening to this journey, and you have a beautiful life.
Thank you.
You've got a marriage, you got kids that you're proud of, you got a business that you've built and super proud of, and also exited. You're a CEO of a company that's thriving, but you're still really young. Like what aspirations do you, like?
I still
what more mountains do you have to like go climb?
So I still have so many ideas. I'm starting to realize I do have finite time, right? Like I probably can't write a bestseller and start a TV show and start another company and run for governor and, you know, all these things.
But
so
you like all of them.
Well, like everything is intriguing to me, right? So I ran for a state Senate office 5 years ago. It was a special election where my senator, anyway, there was someone that needed to be elected within 3 weeks. I jumped in and ran. I came in second. Mike Kennedy beat me, who's now our congressman.
You were that close.
Yeah.
Let's go. I had no idea.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And I feel like even though I lost, like running gave me confidence, because I'm like, I did that. I just did that. Even though I didn't win, like I learned a lot. And anyway, so if the right opportunity came along.
It feels like you dominate in politics. Most of it's just like, one, you're a phenomenal leader, but two, you got a really great network.
Well,
you know what I mean? You got a lot of people that I
thank
think
you.
almost anything that you raise your hand and say, hey, I want to go do this, that they'd say, you know.
Well, and I'd be honored. That was one of the things I learned in that race, because there were people who did come forward and donate money. Some I didn't ask even to, and they just did it. And then I was like, oh, I want to show well for them. And I felt bad in some ways that I lost, and yet these people had supported me, but everyone was cool, and everyone saw it as a positive that I ran and was part of the process. The thing is, politics is hard, because even the best of politicians, you can't make everyone happy. There's not consensus on every issue, right? And so I'm friends with Governor Cox. I think he does a great job. He's not universally loved, right? So the minute you step into a political arena, you're going to have some enemies. And right now, as a journalist with a magazine where I got to write about all the positive things, I made a lot of friends, not a lot of enemies.
Yeah, like almost, like the role that you were in for almost your entire career allows you just to be a champion of everybody. Like, you're really not picking fights with
No. No, I love BYU and UVU. I love Young Living and doTERRA, right? I can love everybody. So that part worries me a little bit, like the divisiveness of politics, but I also think good people need to run. So I tell a lot of good people, you should run. And so
so that potentially is somewhere in there.
Potentially. I also there is part of me, the entrepreneurial side of me is like, what other business could I start? Whenever I go to, speaking of Kristen Anders, whenever I'm in the Traeger headquarters, I think it's a really cool space.
It's so inspiring.
And the space itself helps create the culture. It allows them to hold meetings and all that. And I find myself in the space going like, I want to create another brand, where I could have a cool space and I could do cool things. And, just the branding part of it sounds so fun, and to start over with a new culture and start it from the ground up. So there's still part of me that if there was that opportunity, I don't have an idea right now or something percolating that I'm about to start or anything, but I still wonder if that's in the cards. I have some business books that I have sketched out before, like chapters and things that I'd love to share, things that I've learned from interviews I've done. I sketched out a book once called The Business Bible, where I was going to share like a scriptural story that was a business principle, and then show the modern day ways that played out.
How cool is that?
And so I never finished writing the book, but like I have it sketched out with all the verses. When I read scriptures, I see business stories. I see leadership. I see leadership in the scriptures, for good and for bad,
You should write that book. I think that'd be a great book.
I think it would.
I think it would. I'd read that book.
Yeah, good. Well, maybe I'll, that's one of the things. And so sometimes, even though I'm now, in this second half of my career, it's like I'm still trying to, in some ways, figure out what to be when I grow up. I've already, had a lot of cool things happen, but like, what should I do now? Because I feel like I have, 20, hopefully 30 years of a career left. But like,
I just look at like these powerhouse women. Like Gail Miller is so inspiring.
I know, I love her.
And she's making her biggest impact today.
Right now.
Yeah, like her biggest impact is being made today. And I'm like, that's so inspiring to me. Like, how cool would it be if, when I look back at my life, if I didn't peak in high school or peak in college, or like that I was continuing to grow and contribute.
Right. Living in crescendo.
Yeah. Like for me, like there's people that I look to that are a decade or 2 decades or 3 decades in front of me that inspire me so much. The Stan Ricks and the Brian Murphys and the Kim Clarks and a lot of these individuals that like are just delivering so much value at these stages of life, and I think for you would just have so much to give. Like, you have your whole life of experience. I just think it's easier. There's not a room you can't get into at this point. And also, like, you've got real substance to give, where when you're younger, you don't have a whole lot of substance.
No, you're a sponge. You're gaining
you got
a lot.
ambition.
Right. You have a lot of dreams, but not a lot of stories to share. It's true. Gail Miller is a great example, and I've interviewed her a few times. And she has a softness to her. But again, that she's a decision maker.
She's a hammer, though. Like,
she is.
Like you listen to.
No, she has
like,
both sides of her,
Yeah, like she absolutely, like, she's not. She came and spoke to a big conference that we did, and she was the highlight of the conference.
She's a great speaker.
And I don't want to say I didn't expect it, but I didn't expect the power. Like she got up and I'm like, she like commanded the room.
Absolutely.
And delivered. I still remember she was talking just about her and Larry, and like her role was a very traditional, it was generational and it was traditional. You know, Larry was out building a business and she was on the home front.
Right.
And then he passed early and she stepped into that like business and leadership role later in life and kind of went back and got coaches and like surround herself and leaned into it. And she just, I don't know, like there's people like that just fire me up so much where I'm like, there's so much to contribute, but there's also like more mountains to climb. And I think there's value in the climb. You know, I think that's what you're describing with, you know, the exit. It's like, it's not the exit.
The exit. It was the journey.
The journey. Yeah. No, I, you know, these are fun for me to continue to do. And I look forward, you know, as the years go by to continue to follow your journey. Cause my intuition tells me that your biggest contribution and your best chapters are yet to be written. And I'm excited to just watch you go crush.
Well, thanks. Yeah. I think there's more chapters of my life and of yours. And thanks for this conversation. It's been fun to get to know you and Chelsea and to see what impact you're making and in the community and beyond. It's really cool. And I've loved the podcast, the different people you've had on. Yeah. There's been a lot of wisdom dropped in this very set right here.
I've loved it too. You know, you talk about how special your career has been because you get to listen to people's stories. And for me, like it is a forcing function for me to sit down with the most, you know, inspiring people that I can network into and hear their story. And I just, you know, when you're the one asking the questions, you just get so much more out of the experience than, you know, a passive experience of listening. And so for me, like I think about this podcast in comparison to your career, and I'm like, you did this for 25 years. Like it had to have been like so fulfilling.
Oh, it's so fulfilling. I mean, I look at Josh James. I interviewed him when he was a kid. We were both kids, right? When he had my computer, you know, and then to be able to have that first experience, and then when he's on our cover again, and then again, and like to watch his exits and watch his growth. And he's a total legend, you know, and to have watched him grown and been, I think, part of his story. You know, I've written about a number of people that have passed away. Yeah. And to have documented that and have the family reach out and want the photos and want the article.
Is that humbling? Like when you have like those like life, like kind of just life happen. You know, I think of a Warren Osborne that you mentioned and some of these, you know, people that died too young or health issues or whatever it is, you know, and.
Yeah, Chris Clark died of ALS. We had a cover story on him, and he texted me after it came out. He's like, this is going to mean so much to my family after my passing, which was inevitable as he was in the middle of his ALS journey. And to know that that meant something, to help document a life that was near its end. Becky Lockhart, who was the first female Speaker of the House in Utah, did a cover story on her 6 months before her very unexpected passing. And to have the last really good photos of her and that, you know, that last story, which you never know that's going to be the case, but to help document people's lives, because every life needs to be documented. Every life is full of stories and lessons. And so it's honestly a privilege to be a small part of people's stories.
So special.
Yeah, it's cool.
Well, you're so good at it.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks for taking some time.
Thanks.
This podcast is brought to you by Sandlot Partners.